So this is going to be the first video on your algebra review notes, and this video is just going to cover the front page of the notes. I'll do a different video to cover the back page. And just as a warning, bear with me because we got new computers and they are going super slow. So I have to write on my board very slow so that the computer doesn't lose it all. So just bear with me. So the front of this is just going to talk about rounding, and I just want to make sure we all understand rounding so we're all on the same page for the rest of the year. So when you look at a decimal, this first decimal place, this is called the tenths. And the reason why we call it the tenths is if it was 87.4, this is the tenths here. It's the same as writing it as a fraction, 4 tenths. So it would be 87 and 4 tenths. That's the same thing as that decimal. That's what that 0.4 means. Now the second spot here, this is going to be the hundredths. And again, the reason why we call it that is because if I had 87.46, that would be equal to 87 and the fraction 46 hundredths. That's what it's equal to. And finally, our third one here, this is the thousandths. And again, it's called that because if I had 87.466, that's equivalent to 87 and 466 over 1,000. And we could keep going. It would be, next would be 10,000, then 100,000, and so forth. But we're only going to focus on the first three. So the rules for rounding are always whatever decimal place you want as your answer, we are going to look at the next one to see if we should change it or not. So if the next number is 5 or higher, we are going to change it. If it's 4 or lower, we're going to keep it the same. So this first page is just going to focus on the tenths. So tenths is the very first place, the first place. So I'm looking at the first number. That's what my answer is going to be. So all of our answers here are just going to have one number after the decimal place. So if this is what I want my answer to be, this first one, I have to look at the one next to it. Is that 8 5 or higher? Yes, it is. So that means we're going to change that 5 to a 6. So you look at what you want your answer to be. I want my answer to be that one spot after the decimal place. I look just at the number after it. That number is 4 or lower, so that 3 is not going to change. So it'll stay 7.3. And my answer, notice, is still just one place. It's still just one place, one number after the decimal point. So now this repeating bar. This repeating bar means that whatever it's over, that's going to repeat. So this is the same as 2.77777 and so forth. So again, I'm just looking at the first one. That's going to be my answer. I look to the right. It is 5 or higher, so that 7 will change to an 8. Now, fractions, I need to turn them into decimals before I can round them. So to turn this into a decimal, I'm going to take on my calculator 61 divided by 75, and that gives me a decimal of 0.81333333 and so forth. So again, I'm just going to look at the first number, check the number to the right. It is 4 or lower, so it's not going to change, so it'll stay 0.8. Now this last one is a mixed number. It has a whole number and a fraction. So I'm going to keep the 8 out front, but I still need to take 6 divided by 7, and 6 divided by 7, now remember, keep the 8 out front, So the 8 stays out front, and then I'm going to put the decimal after when I take 6 divided by 7. So I get 8, 5, 7, 1, 4, 2, 8, and so forth. So again, I'm looking at just the first number. Check the one after it. It is 5 or higher, so that is going to round it up to 8.9. Okay, so if it asks for tenths, that's all that should be in your answer, is just one decimal place in your answer. No matter what the numbers are, your answer is still only going to have one decimal place. Now, I kept these numbers the same, so hopefully this next one will be a little bit easier, because we're going to use the same exact numbers. Now we're just going to round everything to 2 decimal places. So I'm going to look at the second number now, because that's what I want my answer to be. Check to the right, it's 5 or higher, so that will change it to a 9. For my next one, again, I want the second decimal place to be my answer, so I check to the right. It is 5 or higher, so that will change it. We already talked about what this equals, that repeating bar. So again, looking at the second number, check to the right, it will change it, so that'll become 2.78. This one on the previous page, when we turned it into decimal, that's what it turned into. So I look at the second number, check to the right, it's not going to change it, so it's going to stay 0.81. And then again, the last one, we talked about how to change it on the previous slide. So again, I'm checking the second decimal place, check to the right. It is higher, so I was going to change it to 8.86. So it's the same procedure every time, just now these had to have 2 decimal places in their answers, and the previous slide only needed 1. And now this last slide is the same numbers again, but now we want our answers in thousandths. So that's going to be 3 decimal places. So now I want my answer to be the third spot, so we're going to check to the right. And that's going to change it to a 6. For this one, I look at my third number, check to the right. Nope, it's too small, so it'll stay 7.349. And notice everything before that is always going to stay the same. 7.34 before that number is not going to change. Same thing here, 0.58, not going to change. When you're rounding, the only thing that changes, maybe, is that number. So when I'm looking at the third one, I already know my answer is going to be 2.77. That's not going to change. Just this third one may or may not change. In this case, it is, because the 7 will change it to an 8. But I know those first numbers are not going to change. This next one, again, we know how to get this from the previous slides. I look at my third one, check to the right, not going to change it. And finally, my last one. So I look at my third number, check to the right, not big enough, so it'll stay. So you can see each of these last 3 slides, they were all exactly the same numbers, but notice that the answers are a little bit different depending on what place you had to round to. So just remember, pick the place that you want your answer to be, check to the right. 5 or higher makes it 1 bigger, 4 or lower, it stays the same. If you need to re-watch this video, please feel free to do so, or you can ask me questions at any time and I can help clarify anything.